Hey, welcome to the Mac and Jack Saturday debate show. I was expecting to see the big introduction and it didn't come, so you caught me off guard there, but I'm always ready, Mac. How are you? Mac is here. Here comes Jack.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, the producer of the show forgot to play the intro, so
That's all
we'll let
good.
it go. We'll let it go this week. Next week he's fired if he keeps that
up. All good. So I've missed you guys the last couple of weeks. Last time I saw you, we were at the Jets Giants preseason game, and that was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed. Go ahead, Jack.
It was it was a lot of fun getting together, and it was a lot of fun last night to see the Yankees rally in the ninth inning to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates and be on track to have a winning record for what is it, 28 years in a row or what?
It might be 30. I'm not even sure. So before we have some topics, a lot of them having to do with football, but before we went on the air, we were having a big discussion, Mac, Jack, and I, about the fact that the Yankees are now, all right, sit down, everyone. The Yankees are now 2 games, I believe, over 500. And I know we should just stay quiet for a moment because I'm sure there's cheering going on around the world. Everybody is so excited about this. I made the point, Mac and Jack, I believe, disagree with me, that no one in Yankee land, there's not a Yankee fan anywhere who's saying, oh, thank goodness they're over 500. What a great year. I'm so happy the Yankees are over 500 for the 28th or 31st year in a row. My point is nobody cares. They want to see the Yankees winning pennants and World Series, and obviously they're not doing that this year, and so nobody's happy, and no one's going to say it was a good year because we finished over 500.
Well,
they disagree.
I'll say this. Met fans take pleasure in Yankee fans' misery, but let me just say this to Met fans. If you had the same record as the Yankees, you'd be in serious playoff contention for wild card berth in the NL. Serious playoff contention. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, right.
I think you can't compare because it's 2 different teams they're playing. Everybody tries to compare that stuff. It doesn't work. But the Yankees, I think the players want to win. I think they want to finish over 500. You got a lot of new kids in there. They're playing, their first year. They're excited about doing that. And I'm kind of glad to see that they're playing good ball right now. It's better than them losing out, Doc. That's for sure. So
no doubt. Yeah, but I just say it's not a successful
I think the players,
season.
I've read some posts where they're rooting for the Yankees to finish over 500. To me, what was the Mendoza line? I forget what was 200. If you batted over the Mendoza line, you were doing okay. If you were below it. So the Yankees don't want to fall below the Mendoza line. That's to me, 500 as a team is the Mendoza line for a team. So, I'm not thrilled this year the way it turned out. I'm glad it's not over yet, so we don't know. But right now, the Yankees are playing over 500 ball with the young players, making it more exciting. So, something to look forward to next year. That's for sure.
What do you do the last week of the season with 500 on the line? You want to finish over 500. There are 2 games over 500 now. Do you put your best team out there?
Or
do you just play the kids and you're less concerned with the result of the game as opposed to watching the prospects to see what they can do?
You pitch Cole every 2 games. Yeah, every 2 days you pitch Cole. What do you mean? You keep doing what you've been doing. You're not going to make the playoffs. So you keep doing what you've been doing, right, Doc? That's what I would do. I don't know.
I would be playing the kids. I said a couple of weeks or about a week or so. I've been saying for a long time. There's no reason for Aaron Judge to be playing anymore. I think until last night he was hitting like 211 since the Yankees activated him. When they activated him, they said he's not 100%. It's obvious if he's batting 211 before last night that he isn't 100%. So why are you playing him?
Because you're paying him a lot of money. That's why you're playing him.
And he's still better than anyone else you're going to, Doc. He's still better than
who cares? At this point, you have to worry about his long-term health. And if he's not 100%, why are you playing him? For what purpose? Haven't we seen the Yankees make enough bad decisions with players?
Got a full off season he can rest, Doc. You're paying him how much money a year?
Let's $39 million. What, 36 million?
If he was hurting the team, okay, he's not hurting the team.
But he might be hurting himself.
He might be, but he might not, Doc. I mean, he's got a whole offseason to take care of what he's got to take care of. I mean, you can't baby him all the time. You know that as well as I do. I've heard you say you can't baby him. So
let me tell you.
Go ahead.
Now, Mac, you're talking about babying a guy, not babying a guy. I think we're at the point now with the Yankees and Mets. There are two storylines in the offseason that are going to be the biggest storylines, what the teams have to do. For the Mets, it's the Pete Alonso contract. Okay? Even though it won't be as intense as the Yankee deal, what are they going to do with Pete Alonso? He has one more year left on his contract. He's not a free agent. They can go to arbitration. They could let him become a free agent like the Yankees did with Judge, or they could be aggressive to try to make him a Met for life. He means a lot to the Met fan base. Power hitter, doesn't hit much for average. An average first baseman, maybe slightly above, depending on how you look at it. So what are they going to do with the Pete Alonso contract? For the Yankees, it's what do you do with Giancarlo Stanton? Doc's solution isn't the right solution. Just say, get rid of him, eat the money, just throw it away. It doesn't work that much. When you're paying a fortune of money, you want to get something back. You want to get some type of production, even if it means Stanton has lost his entitlement as a regular and he just becomes another guy. He's on the bench. He's got to earn playing time. But then the argument is, well, if he doesn't get the at-bats, he's not going to be sharp. But to me, I keep him on the team.
There's another argument. When he's out there, he's not trying. That's another argument.
No, don't use that one base running play again.
Yeah, he doesn't hustle. The guy doesn't hustle. The guy doesn't hustle down to first because he's afraid to get hurt.
Because he's scared he's going to get hurt.
Well, there you go. So why would you even play him then? I don't get that. I'm not going to play somebody who's not going to hustle and try. That's ridiculous. That's what you would do as a manager?
He's been awful this year, awful. But when he becomes streaky, he's really awesome those times. He might be able to help, the Yankees down the line. He might not. I think they're playing him now, maybe hoping he catches fire.
I think he hits home runs. I think he hits home runs so he doesn't have to run. That's why I think he hits home runs now.
There was a hit to left field the other day in Fenway Park. Runner on second base, Stanton playing left field, and he picked up the ball. He charged it as best he can, and he lobbed it in. Like he threw it, but he didn't throw it to the plate. I don't know if he can throw to the plate anymore. So my question is this: he's going to be paid $30 million or $27 million. He's got an interesting contract. It goes down every year for the next couple of years or whatever, $25 million, whatever it is. But it's a lot of money. That's a sunk cost. And if he's in the lineup, he's taking the spot of somebody who could be better and would be better. He's not even hitting 200. He hit 211 last year. He can't run. He can't field. He can't throw. He doesn't hit. And the Yankee manager keeps putting him in the middle of the lineup. The Yankees haven't figured out that Giancarlo Stanton is not a middle of the lineup hitter. You talk about the Yankees' big comeback last night and how exciting it was. It almost fell apart. The Yankees had the bases loaded and no outs. Stanton coming up. The pitcher couldn't throw strikes. And what does he do? He pops out to foul ground off of first base. Then the Yankees were about to lose because Volpe grounded into what should have been a double play, but the guy threw the ball away, and then a couple runs scored, and the Yankees were able to go ahead. But the Yankees won because of the error, but the Yankees didn't win because of anything Giancarlo Stanton did. He's a net negative. So why? You're already paying the money. Why keep him on the team to bring the rest of the team down by putting an inferior player on the field? And I like Giancarlo Stanton. I was thrilled when the Yankees got him, but he's no good anymore. So why keep him on the team?
Doc, I could have sworn you dug up a replay. This isn't you talking live. This is you talking about Aaron Hicks. That's what I think it is. With Aaron Hicks, get rid of him. Get him out of here.
And they finally did.
And look what he's doing with Baltimore. He's a key guy for Baltimore.
He got hurt.
Like he did well. He got hurt. He's back. They're playing him. He's producing. For the Orioles, one of the best teams in baseball. They revitalized Aaron Hicks. The Yankees have got to straighten guys out.
I'll let you go, Doc, but it seems like every Saturday we end up talking about Carlos Stanton and Aaron Hicks. I'm waiting for our famous catcher to be mentioned too. Maybe we'll talk about Donaldson later. That's not a debate show.
No, Donaldson, I agree with it.
All right, so we're gonna move on here, but let me just I'll make my last point, and then we're gonna talk about the Jets, because this is as I opened the show, I said we're gonna talk about football, but can you say if these guys leave the Yankees, Sonny Gray, if you're saying Aaron Hicks has revitalized his career, why is it that these players leave the Yankees and all of a sudden figure it out again? Maybe there's something wrong with the Yankees, that they're not able to perform like they should while they're on the Yankees, and they can finally self-actualize again when they get away from the club. Is that something worth looking into? But who cares?
Yeah.
We're talking football. Monday night. My goodness. You guys know I used to be a big Jets fan a long time ago. Sack Exchange, Gastineau, Freeman McNeil, Richard Todd, etc. And then, I have a passing interest in football, but boy, was I excited this year. Aaron Rodgers, the great new Jet, here he comes. He lasts one series, and now he's hurt, and he's out for the year. He's saying he's going to come back, and you got to admire that, and you got to admire the fact that he's saying, I'm going to do everything I can to even get back this year. I don't think it's possible, but it'll be fun to see what happens. But the big question is, now that Aaron Rodgers is injured, where are the Jets going to finish? What's their season going to look like?
Well, we're going to talk about the AFC East first, because they've got to win the AFC East, or at least get a wild card before they get into the playoffs. There was a lot of things that happened that Monday night game, the highs and the lows. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, you said, got hurt. He was hurt in the preseason. He did something to his calf, and I think that's what happened to him again. He pulled it while the guy was, flinging him around. He was trying to, I think, break the fall or whatever happened there. But he pops his Achilles tendon. Zach Wilson comes in. Of course, all the fans were upset. The Jets, MetLife Stadium was silent. It was silent when he went out. And so anyway, Zach Wilson came in, and they started running the ball, which was a very smart thing to do. Zach Wilson, his first series, he passed the ball, he got intercepted. I don't know if Buffalo kind of exhaled the breath there when Aaron Rodgers left. Like, okay, we're playing Zach Wilson now, so we don't have to play as hard. And I don't know if Josh Allen doesn't throw those 4 interceptions that the Jets win. So I'm not sure if the Jets got a great defense, and I know that, and they got some skill position players out there on both sides of the ball. But I don't know if Zach Wilson is Aaron Rodgers. And with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets looked like they were going to have a winning season, at least get in the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to happen now. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if Zach Wilson – I don't care if Aaron Rodgers comes on the sideline and talks to him in between plays. He's still got to do it on the field. Zach Wilson hasn't been able to do it on the field. I still don't think he can. I think they're going to finish like in 3rd, maybe 4th place. I think Buffalo's a lot better than they looked. The Patriots are a solid team, and Miami's the class of that division this year. I would be shocked if they win more games than they did last year, Doc, to be honest with you.
What do you think, Jack? You're a big Jets fan.
Arguably, the Jets have the best defensive unit in football. That's going to go a long way. If that defensive unit shows up to play every week, they're going to harry every quarterback. It's not an accident that Josh Allen threw the few interceptions. And Sauce Gardner didn't even have his best game. He says he was just average in the outing against Buffalo. Jets got a great running game. I mean, with Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall, their offensive line that needs work on the pass protection, nevertheless, is very good at run blocking. And I think the Jets are going to be fun. I picked them to win the division. Maybe now with Zach Wilson, it gets slanted, and maybe Miami becomes the favorite to win the division now. But the Jets are going to be fine when all is said and done.
Good morning, Philly sports guys. I gotta respond to something what Jack said really quick. It's not Josh Allen's fault that he threw those interceptions, Jack.
It-
Did you watch? Did
the
you watch the
Jets
same game I
carried
did?
him. They
Did you
had
see
him
the same
under
game I did?
pressure.
Did you watch the same game I did? He rolled out to the left, no pressure, and winged it down into double coverage. Nobody was around him.
Were
And he
harrying
threw
Josh
60
Allen all
yards.
night.
He threw 60 yards downfield into double coverage, Jack.
Well, you're talking about the past
At least
60
two.
yards
At least
supposedly
two times.
downfield
At
was
least
as good
twice.
as a punt for Buffalo.
At least
The
twice.
interception-
It would have been a lot
interception
better if
was-
he threw it short and they drove down the field and maybe got a field goal, a touchdown, Jack.
Pags, you just got in here, and it's always great to have you. Good to see you again. I like how you get exasperated. You come on, and then you're like, oh. So we're talking about the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers getting hurt.
Go figure.
Well, the
And
Jets who
the
won
question
their
is, how are they going to
opening
do this
game.
year now?
So I've got something to talk about with the Jets. After they lose this Sunday, which I believe they will
To the
to
Cowboys.
Dallas, I think they make a play for Kirk Cousins.
That's
think
interesting because that's one of our questions coming up. Is we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins. Why do you think he's going to be available?
I think, well, he's on his last year of his contract. The Vikings are 0-2. I think that by doing that, they're going to get some draft capital. They're going to go to another quarterback anyways. This may start I don't want to call it a season of tanking, but a season of rebuilds by getting rid of a quarterback who could get you probably back a third, maybe even a second-round pick. And it would
The
also
Jets don't have a second-round pick, Pags. It's going to be Green Bay's.
All right, well, then it would be a third-round pick because I don't think he's worth a first. And maybe
Minnesota
even,
wouldn't trade him for a third round. It would have to be a first.
you think? They could get nothing for him because he's going to leave at the end of the season because he's a free agent. So I don't think that you actually understand that. I think that a third-round pick that would be something that's at least an asset for them. And it would probably be somewhere, obviously it's going to be in the top 100. So I think that would absolutely be worth it to them.
I understand if they get Kirk Cousins, the Jets aren't going to sign him beyond this year if that by some fluke happened, because Aaron Rodgers is coming back.
Wait, we don't know. We don't know he's coming back or not. He says he's coming back. That's a tough injury to come back from.
Yeah, I fully believe he will come back. And the reason why that
Pax, he's 39 years old.
The reason why is because he's all in tune with everything that's happening down in Costa Rica. He's going to get it repaired here. He's going to go down to Costa Rica. He's going to get the stem cell shots and all of that stuff. He's going to go in his black hole and he's going to come out a new man and he's going to be fine. So I fully expect that. And listen, Kobe Bryant came back from an Achilles very late in his career too. So it's not impossible with the way medicine is today. He's not going out like that. He's not going out like that.
I understand that point, but Kobe Bryant wasn't 40 years. He'll be 40 years old next year. And you think
Kobe Bryant was 36, 37. So I know 2 years isn't a lot, but it is a lot. You know, he was
Kobe Bryant wasn't getting smacked down by 300-pound players either.
Well,
Kobe Bryant had to cut a lot more with the coming back than Aaron Rodgers. Well, he had a lot more movement.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So what do you think they're going to finish, Peg, in the AFC East? That's what the debate question is.
Third in the division. They could fall down to the bottom of the division, and being in the bottom of the division doesn't mean that you're a bad team. It just could mean that you're. I think the Patriots are better than people think after watching Game 1. You know what I mean? I think that this is going to be a good telltale on how they respond this week. Their defense is really good. I feel like that Buffalo could also be the one that falls down to the bottom of the division. Again, they could have a winning record, but still be at the bottom of the division. They're the ones whose defense is the one that's probably the least scary. So I don't know.
And you
We'll
think
see.
the Dolphins are
Be
the best
interesting.
team in the league, in the division?
By far. By far.
I think so. I think so.
By far.
You know, and that's all going to depend on Tua remaining healthy. You know, he's just a sack away from being out for maybe the rest of his career if he gets hit the right way. So
Yeah.
it's
I
anything
think
is
Tua,
possible, but
I think Tua will be fine this year. He took some kind of martial arts classes or something in the offseason to distribute.
he learned how to fall. That's what I heard. He learned how to fall. Last time I checked, sometimes you're not falling, you're getting thrown down.
That's true. But you could say that about any quarterback, any starting quarterback. If your quarterback gets hurt, we'll see what happens to the team. I think Miami has a shot. They'll be a Super Bowl contender this year. I think.
Let me ask you
agree.
this:
A contender.
How many of you? Pags brought up that the Jets are going to get Kirk Cousins. That's a possibility.
That's not a possibility. Don't listen to Pax. Pax comes this wild thought out of nowhere. Don't give it credibility.
I'm going to give this. I'm going to use that as a stepping stone. As a stepping stone to the bigger question, whether it's Kirk Cousins or Carson Wentz or Matt Ryan or Colin Kaepernick or Tom Brady or whomever. Will the
Ryan
Joe
Fitzpatrick?
Flacco, right?
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
The Jets are going to have to go get somebody. Who are they going to get to be the backup quarterback, the guy who they can go to if Zach Wilson can't get it done?
That's a good question because right now the backup is Randall Cobb. Believe it or not, that's their emergency quarterback right now.
Well, Tim Boyle is the backup right now.
Well, I'm saying the emergency. I'm saying the third stringer right now would be Randall Cobb. Tim Boyle is accurate, but he's not even a Zach Wilson. You're going to have to get some kind of experienced guy that can come in there and as another manager. I'm trying to think. Weineke, I think, has been mentioned. Colt McCoy has been mentioned. He's been mentioned. I'm not sure, Doc. I'm not sure who they're going to get.
Wouldn't it make more sense for Kirk Cousins?
Definitely.
Get him in here. You'd get him in here. You'd get him. You'd have Zach Wilson start for another 2 weeks, which gets you to that 4th week spot where it's like the end of preseason, and then you start to implement Kirk Cousins into that offense. I gotta believe it's worth the conversation.
Well, if they got Kirk Cousins, he definitely would become the starter, and the Jets again would be up near the top as far as the teams go because Kirk Cousins is a lot better than Zach Wilson. But are the Minnesota Vikings? What are they going to take for him? They're not just going to take a 3rd round pick back.
Well, they'll take Zach Wilson and a whole bunch of stuff on top of it, obviously. But it's not happening. Pax thought this wild thing in his own head. That's not reality. We shouldn't be talking about it. Colt McCoy makes sense. You don't want Zach Wilson to have a threat hanging over his head. Now, Carson Wentz, a guy who Pax is extremely familiar with, okay? If he came to the Jets, even though Wentz failed at Indianapolis and Washington after he left Philadelphia, he failed dismally at both places. The Jet fans might be shouting his name if Zach Wilson struggles because Carson Wentz is a big name. And at one point early in his career, he had major success. Okay. So you need a 3rd quarterback on the team. You want someone who could help in an emergency, but not a big name that's so threatening, to Zach Wilson, because this is it for Zach Wilson. If they have to bring in another guy to start ahead of him, Zach Wilson has 0 future as a New York Jet. So they may as well just trade him off.
Right. So let me just respond to that in thought here as we play the game. On one hand, we're saying Zach Wilson has the tools to lead the Jets to a pretty good season. No one has said they're going to be under 500. They're saying that the Jets are going to be somewhat competitive. They have a great defense, and maybe Zach Wilson can be the guy to help them even reach the playoffs. And which means he's got to be able to handle pressure, and he's got to be able to do the job on this big scene in the NFL as the quarterback. And at the same time, we're saying, but if there's a big name guy behind him, we're going to make him uncomfortable and nervous. And I don't know if he can respond to that kind of pressure. Don't the Jets have an obligation to bring in a big name guy to be behind him, to put that kind of pressure on him, to say that if you can't do it, we're going to get you out of there? I mean, you either can handle the pressure or you can't handle the pressure. But to not have a backup plan behind guys who are obviously third and fourth and fifth stringers, which is what's behind Zach Wilson right now, the Jets have to get somebody. So the question is, who are they going to get? I even heard the name Kyler Murray, if the Cardinals do badly, and Ryan Tannehill. I mean, there's been all sorts of names out there. So I don't think Kirk Cousins is as crazy as some of those other names that have been reported.
Yeah, I will say this: if the Jets are willing to give up, let's say, their first round draft choice next year, they call Tennessee, there's a chance they could get Tannehill. There's a valid chance that they can get him, and they would have a quality starter for the rest of this season until Rodgers comes back. As long as Rodgers says he's coming back,
is Tannehill a valid starter? What, did he throw 3 interceptions in his first game?
Well, he's been a starter for years, but he's on his last year of his contract. And Tennessee has Malik Willis, and they have Levis, so they would slot those guys in. And Tennessee's not likely to be going anywhere this season.
Well, let me throw this at you. Suppose the Jets could get Malik Willis or Levis.
Both guys unproven, like Zach Wilson. Malik Willis was shaky in his rookie year. Levis has had a poor training camp, for more reports.
All right, so let's do this. Let's set, each of you gets to pick the quarterback. We don't have to get into the specifics. They give 14 rounds of picks and 32 people and whatever. We don't care about that. But the guy who the Jets should get right now, who's available, right? You can't say Patrick Mahomes, obviously, but of these names of people that have been bandied about, which of those guys should the Jets get to be the backup to Zach Wilson to get them through the rest of this year?
I think it's good. So, and the reason why I know that Rick said, hey, that they floated that. I was the one that announced that before the Eagles game. I said after they lose that Kirk Cousins is going, especially because he's got the 10-day layoff, so that it's possible that he's going to wind up going to the Jets, especially after Sunday and they get dismantled. So I fully believe it's Kirk Cousins that's going to be the one that does that. And the Vikings, they could take a 3rd round pick and they could maybe take Zach Wilson. You know what I mean? Like that actually makes sense to me. So, and then they would be stuck with Zach Wilson for a couple more years, but and that 3rd round pick, and then the Jets at least show their fan base that they're going to do everything they can. And wouldn't it be weird if Kirk Cousins actually leads the Jets to the Super Bowl?
It's possible.
Then what? Then what?
It's possible, Bags. That's possible. Listen, if they take Zach Wilson, they still got to get a backup. Here we go again. If they want Zach Wilson to stay there, I think the best option would be Colt McCoy. He's a game manager. He won't lose the game for you, and he'd be a perfect backup for the system that they're putting in for Zach Wilson right now.
I agree. I agree with you totally what you just said, Max. The Jets tried to get Brett Ripien from the Rams because, Paul Hackett was his head coach at Denver when Ripien was there. So the Rams took him off the practice squad and they put Ripien on their active roster so he couldn't go to the Jets. They kind of foiled the Jets on that one. I
saw that. But Pags, I don't think your idea is crazy. I don't. I think it's like
I said, I've been talking about this for 2 days now.
Yeah.
So
the Vikings are going to give up on the season after 2 games. That's what you're basically saying.
I think that this is where Justin Jefferson gets a lot to say. This is where they're going to have to figure out what to do in that quarterback position. Now that they are 0-2, it kind of puts a sort of haze over the season. And I understand this is the preseason of the regular season. You know what I mean? I know when I sound funny when I say that, but because you have that first 4 games to really get it right. But I think that they understand that right now they need, you know, if you brought in Zach Wilson and made him the starter in Minnesota in 2 weeks, and you have him throwing to Justin Jefferson, because really that's all they have. They have Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson. So
Yeah.
you have 2 reads, and that's it. If you have to get to your third read, you're hoping that this guy can catch. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel that it's a perfect fit for both teams right there.
Yeah, and if Zach Wilson is the type of player who worries about pressure, well, there's not going to be any pressure if you're on a team that's supposed to lose, right? And you're coming in. So interesting topic. We'll move on. We've been doing on the show Super Bowl matchups, 70s teams versus 80s teams. Let's do the 1973 Miami Dolphins Super Bowl champion versus the 1988 Washington Redskins Super Bowl champion. Who's winning that game?
Well, that's good. That would be one of the best matchups, I think. You're going to the AFC, great 70 AFC teams versus the great 80s Super Bowl teams. I think this would be one of the toughest matchups. In the Redskins, you had Doug Williams that year. You had Art Monk. You had Ricky Henderson. I'm trying to think of the other receiver there.
Was
Gary
that the
Clark.
Riggins year? Was that Riggins?
No, Reagan's was before that.
No, that was they had the running back then. See if I can.
Ricky Sanders.
No, Ricky Sanders was a wide receiver. That was the Three Amigos. It was Jimmy Smith. Remember, he ended up being an MVP of one of the Super Bowls for the Redskins. You had Dexter Manley, linebacker Wilbur Smith, and the cornerback then maybe the greatest of all time, Darrell Green. So that was a Washington. They trounced Denver like 42 to 10 in the second half. They blew them out against a Hall of Fame team in Miami, which was probably the better of Jackson, better than the 72 Super Bowl perfect season.
Yeah.
This team was loaded with Hall of Famers. Of course, Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris, Paul Warfield. You had defensive backs Jack Scott, Dick Anderson, linebacker Nick Bonacani, defensive end Bill Stansfield.
Yeah, but this is the team that did go undefeated, right?
No, they repeated as Super Bowl champions the next season. Even though they lost 2 games, they were actually a better team than the team that was unbeaten. The team unbeaten won their 3 playoff games, and I count the Super Bowl as a playoff game, by a total of 17 points, 3 games. But the following year, they were a dominant team. They beat the Vikings 24-7 in the Super Bowl. They were like a powerhouse the second time around.
So this was probably their best team. So I think you could say this was the Redskins' best team of the 3 Super Bowl winners against the Miami's best Super Bowl team of those 2 Super Bowl winners. So this would be a heck of a matchup. The Hogs, Larry Zonka and the Miami, the running up the middle of Mercury Morris outside. I think it would have been a heck of a game. I'm interested to see what you guys think before I give my answer.
Yeah, I know the Redskins beat a great quarterback in John Elway, but that Denver team wasn't good. That Denver team, before they broke through and eventually won a Super Bowl, that was 1 of 3 that they lost, and they lost all of them decisively. I just think that Dolphin team was too well balanced, too strong, and they haven't beaten every department. And I trust Bob Greasy a lot more than I would Doug Williams, all factors equal. You talk about Art Monk. I like Paul Warfield a little more. There's no one who is quite on the level of Larry Zonka as far as I'm concerned. And that Miami, defense, the way they would swarm. I mean, they were just so good all around.
Well, one more stamp. Miami only gave up 10.7 points a game that year. That's how good that defense was.
Just going by what, of course, in 1973, I was 1. So I don't have a lot to say about the Dolphins that year. I got to imagine, like, knowing Washington. And I remember one of the games that year, the Eagles, It's funny because any team that won from the NFC East, the Eagles actually kind of like when the Giants won in the NFC East, the Eagles swept them that year. Uh, the same thing with Washington. I think we swept them that year. One of those games I remember being in like a bus station. I took a Greyhound bus from somewhere and I just gotten back and we're watching on this little TV. Everybody's crowded around a little TV that they have attached to a desk, and us beating the Redskins like 38-30 on a game that was just like knockdown, drag out. It was just going back and forth, and it was a real heavy hitting game. So I kind of think that I'd have to go with Miami, just by the way you guys are talking about it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. My expertise with the Redskins ends and begins with the Joe Theismann team and John Regan. So I'm not qualified to answer the question. Of course, the Dolphins, what you're saying there, they were undefeated the year before. Everybody knows that. I didn't realize that they were even better the next year, as Jack is saying. And Max says,
My opinion.
Yeah. So I think it's hard to pick against an all-time great team.
Yeah.
To pick a team that, Doug Williams was his only Super Bowl, right? The Redskins hadn't been in the Super Bowl for a number of years before that, and then they weren't in the Super Bowl, I don't believe, after that. So I would have to pick the Dolphins just because.
No, they did go. They did win in '93, right?
Yeah, a couple years
5
later.
years later. So, but and Doug Williams was the backup. So I mean, it wasn't even their starting quarterback. So that's what, for all of those reasons, I have to go with Miami there. That's and like I said, just going by what you guys are saying about Miami and how dominant they were. And I know how dominant that the Redskins had a great team, but they weren't as dominant, and a great defensive line was able to get to the quarterback. Because it's funny. I think it was the Eagles knocking out the quarterback that made Doug Williams the quarterback to go into the playoffs.
If I was going to make a case for the Washington Redskins, I would maybe point to the coaches. Their coach was Joe Gibbs, had won 3 Super Bowls. He was really good in big games, opposed to Don Shula, most wins of all time of any NFL coach, but he wasn't that good in big games. He never won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Colts. He was a coach that lost to Joe Namath and the Jets in the biggest upset. He couldn't get by the 49ers decisively beat his Dolphin team with Dan Marino. He never won a Super Bowl with Dan Marino. He just wasn't that good in big games, Don Shula. But for that 2-year stretch with the Dolphins, he was as good as any coach ever.
But I will say this little fun fact. I think he was the only opposing coach to ever get carried out of Veterans Stadium's field. He won his 300th game at Veterans Stadium and got carried off the field.
Did the Eagle fans cheer for Shula? Did they boo him?
I kind of remember the cheering. It's like it's Miami, so it's not the biggest deal. And of course, it was a little bit of a different time. I remember watching it happen. I don't remember whether we booed or cheered.
Well, let me put it another way, Pags. If it was Bill Parcells and the Giants, and Parcells set a record for coach, and they were carrying off the field, would the Eagle fans be standing and clapping for Bill Parcells?
No.
Just now. Listen, let me make a better argument for the Redskins. The Three Amigos was one of the best trios of all time. Art Monk, of course, Hall of Famer Ricky Sanders, and Gary Sanders. Am I saying it right? Well, the Three Amigos, anyways. And they were doing all them celebrations that year. Doug Williams had a huge Super Bowl game, one of the best of all times. Yeah. If he has that game, if they can establish a running game with the with the Hogs, they could beat Miami. I agree with you. I think Miami wins that, but a very, very close game. I think it would have been a knockdown, drag-out fight.
Sounds fun. All right, so here, this is the Pags. Sometimes Jack is picks on Pags and all that kind of stuff, all in good nature, of course. Everybody's having fun, but the man sees into the future. The man has a sense of what's coming next. And there's a question that was prearranged. This question was set out there, but Pags did not know about it. And the question is, has Josh Allen become the Kirk Cousins of the AFC?
Yes, question mark. I think he's more like the Brett Favre without the Super Bowl ring. That's more of what he is. I look at he's like the Brett Favre uh, after the Super Bowl win, where he felt that he could just do no wrong and was more of a gunslinger than anything else, and made poor decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use the term that I hate to be critical of someone who's trying too hard because you want 100% effort, but it seems like Josh Allen is trying to put the team on his back and do everything. Okay, and it results in certain mistakes. But in fairness to him, Buffalo never really addressed the offensive line. I mean, they made some moves. The offensive line has been really bad since he's gotten to the Bills. They don't have much of a running game. I know James Cook was fair in the last game. He didn't do badly. But, it's in a way you're counting on Josh Allen to carry that team. Yeah, he made certain mistakes that he really shouldn't have made turning the ball over. And what disappointed me a little bit too was in the overtime. Buffalo wins the coin toss and they go three plays and out. They don't even get a first down to move the chains. And the league quarterback at least gets 1 or 2 first downs before they punt. And credit the Jet defense, but still, I consider Josh Allen an elite quarterback. How's that? Maybe I won't put him in the top 5 anymore, but certainly he's in the top 7 or 8 right now in the league.
Well, a good comparison with Brett Favre. I think the reason why I put Kirk Cousins is because Kirk Cousins, it seems to always lose in a big game, whether it's a night game or it's a playoff game or something like that. Brett Favre at least won one Super Bowl and came really close with the Vikings, probably his best year. They beat the heck out of him, and he still almost won that game. Josh Allen, what's the problem with Josh Allen is he still thinks it's his first year, and I don't care what anybody says. I think Brian DeBall leaving has reverted him back to where he's going to run with the ball, jump over people. I mean, when he jumped over the guy, and it wasn't even for a first down, he ran for 3 yards and he tried to hurdle this guy. It just goes to show you that he's got to start reading defenses and start taking short passes and drive the ball down. Run when you gotta, only when you gotta. Get out of bounds. I don't know how many years they've been telling this guy to do this. If he goes down, Buffalo is. I mean, talk about if a quarterback goes down, Buffalo is finished. They don't even have a chance to finish in the top 2 in the AFC. I this is why I compare him to Kirk Cousins. He's sure a better athlete than Kirk Cousins, but in the big games, he seems to come up throwing interceptions.
Guys, I think there's a little difference involved. Josh Allen's a quarterback that plays with tremendous emotion. You could tell he's giving it all he has on the field. You don't get that feeling with Kirk Cousins. You have the feeling he's there to pick up a paycheck. He's like the office worker. As soon as it's time to clock out, even though there's a minute or 2 of work that has to get done, he leaves immediately, which isn't bad. Don't get me wrong.
I don't agree. I don't agree.
Kirk Cousins doesn't play with that real type of emotion. I mean, that Josh Allen does.
Well, no, he doesn't run with the ball and try to kill himself. No, he doesn't do that. But I think Kirk Cousins is still a very.
But even the Eagle, take the Eagle Viking game. Jalen Hurts plays with emotion. Kirk Cousins plays business-like. I think that's kind of a difference.
I guess so. I think Jalen Hurts is a little bit younger than Kirk Cousins too. I mean,
no, Jalen Hurts is making some mistakes, Pags. I'm not overly concerned, but Jalen Hurts, the Eagles can go to the Super Bowl even if he regresses a little bit. Okay, he'll still be a good quarterback, but is Jalen Hurts going to take a little step up to be close to Patrick Mahomes' territory? or is he going to take a little step down to just be another good quarterback? You know, that
I look at
jury's
this,
out.
yeah, and I agree. I feel like he obviously has not played a great game, a 100% great game yet. That one interception throw was really ill timed, especially when there was somebody wide open. He is missing some open reads and such, and I feel like that this is part of the preseason of the regular season. I'm kind of happy that they're not clicking on all cylinders right now, because that makes them show them that, hey, uh, there's still a lot to improve upon, and we have to still get a lot better if we're going to make it to the Super Bowl. That's kind of how my thoughts are on this this point. I just I don't have the cause for concern yet, but it's they have to continue to get better and better. You're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl with the way that we're playing right now.
I have no concerns about the Eagles right now. They're going to get better as their schedule gets tougher, like you're supposed to in football, and they should be peaking at the right time. I think Jalen Hurts will be fine. I really do. I think the running game is something that they've got to get going without Hurts. That's one thing that I would be concerned about. But the ex-Detroit running back, I'm trying to remember his name,
DeAndre Swift
had a nice game. So that's maybe he becomes the number one running back for the Eagles. So I have no concern about the Eagles at all. Really.
I look at this as they're taking a page out of the Andy Reid playbook back in 2003 or 4, or maybe even after that, with the three-headed monster. Like Rashad Penny, you heard his name very, very, slightly, because they were using him around the edges, where the running was up the middle, up the middle, up the middle. That's where they were gaining most of their yards. And I thought that was where Swift really excelled. And like I said, it was his homecoming. He was finally playing in front of his home crowd, in front of most of his family. And, it was a great game by him. When you go 175 yards, and obviously he probably should have gotten 2 touchdowns. They didn't give him that first one, and they didn't review it. They just went with the sneak because nobody can stop that sneak. But
It was great. The Eagle fans were booing the team going into halftime against the Vikings. I would love as motivation Nick Sirianni to get Gazzo. And Gazzo talks to the team. He'll say, the people don't like you. Some people hate for no reason. I would have loved that as a motivational talk.
Well, they weren't booing them going into the halftime because he kicked a 60-yard field goal.
Oh, okay. Oh, before that, I'm sorry.
Before that, yes, there was some questionable play calls, and I get it. Listen, even the coaching staff is in preseason mode too, so this is all again. The one thing that I took out of the Dallas game was that defense is clicking on all cylinders against the Giants, but I also feel like that they're doing that right now in this beginning of the season, that you start to sniff yourselves after a little while if you have a couple of games like that. And that's where you gotta keep that up all season long. This is game 2 of 17. I want to be clicking on all cylinders game 15 of 17, not game 2.
Interesting. You keep bringing up the idea that the football season begins with games that, even though they count, the teams are still trying to figure it out, calling it the preseason during the season. Is that a problem? Hey, and let me just expand upon the question real quickly. In baseball, which I don't think this happens in, if you start off the season with a bunch of losses, it doesn't really mean, I mean, every game counts, but if you go 2-4 to begin a season in baseball, it's okay. You're not going to be buried because the season's so long. But if you go 2-4 in the NFL, you only have 17 games. You could be way behind the 8 ball. Is it a problem that teams aren't prepared for the start of the season?
I think it depends on what division you're in. I think it depends on a lot what division you're in. If you're in a very strong division and you come out and you're 1-4, say, or 1-3, that hurts you a lot more than if you're in a weaker division that, maybe 500 wins the division. I think that's the problem. Listen, the Giants aren't going to get that game back. That game may decide whether they go in the playoffs or not. You know what I mean? That could happen. But
yeah,
but I don't
they got a 40 points now that they have to make up. If it becomes
exactly,
a tiebreaker, there's no
exactly,
way that they're going to be able to get that against
and a
Dallas.
division game packs, which is another tiebreaker, and the NFC, which is another tiebreaker. So they're down almost. That's 3 strikes against them in one game, believe it or not. But I think it's too early to get worried yet. And when you start hitting week 8 and you're still struggling, then there's a problem. Then you're gonna have a big problem.
So I guess my question is: should teams be better prepared for the start of the season, or is it okay that they,
Doc, that is a great question, and I hope these GMs, these coaches listen to you. When you, Mac, and myself went to the Giant-Jet game, the Giants didn't play any of their starters. This is their last preseason game. That's 15 days before their season opener. And they were awful in their season opener. They were terrible getting blown out. Now, had they played their starters 15 days before, there's time to rest up. That's like having a bye the next week, and they would have been more ready to go against Dallas. So what was gained by not playing their starters? 15 days before.
You're sort of answering my question.
Yeah.
Isn't the purpose of the preseason to get ready for the season? And if there's this theory that you don't play your starters in the preseason, then you're not going to be ready for the season. No,
it should be. Max says it's not.
So I will say that even before I cut you off, I'm going to cut you off, Mac. Even Nick Sirianni said that he feels now, after Jalen Hurts not playing in the preseason and all in the preseason, that won't happen again. He will absolutely play him in the preseason. That there has to be some actual game time stuff, whether it be for a drive, just to be able to get some of these things, get some of the moving parts actually oiled properly, because it was a mess against New England.
The only problem with that is they don't hit in training camp anymore. You can't really evaluate your younger players and the draft picks and all this stuff and get it down to that 53-man roster if you don't play the kids and give them a shot. Different with the Eagles. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year. They pretty much know what their team is. Not a lot of young people are going to make that. Your high draft choices, yes, maybe. But if you got a team, say like the Giants or even the Jets defense, you're not going to worry about. But you're going to worry about the offensive linemen. So if you're going to play the starting offensive lineman all 3 games, you don't know what you got there. So I in certain teams, I agree with you. They should play a little bit more, because if your starting quarterback's playing, your starting offensive line is playing. So if you don't have a good offensive line, you can't evaluate if you're going to say these are my starters, or you could get your quarterback hurt. So it's rough now. It's not like it was way back when everybody hit. You could make a lot of decisions during training camp, and then the preseason you played your starters the third game, and that was it. And then you could make your cuts. It's totally different than it was back then.
Well, and I agree with that. But you got to remember, like, at one point there were 6 preseason games, and so these teams are still playing the same amount of games that they have been playing forever. Yeah. But there used to be 6 preseason, and then, hey, let's get into the regular season. Obviously, the NFL shortened it. I say that there's 4 games of preseason, regular season football, because they're not playing at all in the preseason, or very, very little. They're not going to be. They're playing maybe 2 games of those 3 anymore. Yeah. But that's really where it is. You still have 6 games to kind of figure it out. 2 in the preseason, 4 in the regular season, to kind of work out all of the kinks that you have. And I feel like that everybody's afraid to get injured now. Too many injuries are happening. Too many ways of getting hurt without it counting. And that's that they still think about the fans in the stands. They want to make sure that people still come out.
And then that goes right back to training camps and them not hitting, because you can't get in shape unless you start getting hit. And that's
But like
crazy.
think about that. Think about if this happened to Aaron Rodgers in the last preseason game instead of the first drive of the regular season.
Then maybe they
all of a sudden there would have been hell to pay.
Yeah, but then they could have got it. Then they could have went out, maybe got a new quarterback faster too, and then Zach Wilson would at least had a full game to play. So I mean, you could say either way on that. You could, half dozen one, half dozen the other on that. So
yeah, isn't the purpose of the preseason? Tell me I'm wrong. To get the team. If I were a coach, I'd be using my preseason to get my team ready for the season. And in spring training, pitchers pitch. They don't go 9 innings.
Kudos to Doc. Doc is smarter than the NFL coaches and you guys. That's the purpose. That should be. Doc's nailed it, but no one sees it.
It used to be, Doc, but because of training camp and they don't hit anymore, you can't evaluate the kids anymore. You can't evaluate a wide receiver when you just touch him and you don't hit him. You don't know if he can hold on to the ball or not. The whole evaluation process has been pushed into preseason.
Right. So maybe my question.
I look at it.
Isn't the whole system messed up? If you're
yes.
Okay.
You're
answering my question.
On what it is that you're saying. You're right. They are starting the conditioning program for the season. That's what happens in the preseason now. They get everybody in camp and they get them conditioned to be able to go for what they want is a 20-game season. They want to be able to play the 20th game and they want to win that 20th game. That's what they're
by the 20th game, teams are eliminated, right?
Right. The 20th game is the Super Bowl.
Yes. There are some teams eliminated, definitely. So
right. So the idea is to peak for the game that nobody's playing, or only 2 teams are playing. The system to me doesn't make any sense.
Guys, a lot of times you want to rest players for the long haul and kind of pace them. There's a controversy in basketball now. The NBA stepped in. They're not going to allow superstars to be rested. They're going to put players and they're going to group players according to ability. And a team at most can only hold out 1 player per game. They're working on some type of plan, which I can understand. If I'm buying tickets, for example, to see the LA Lakers play the Nets, just for example, I want to see LeBron James play, and all of a sudden they just said, we're going to rest him this game.
They'll find a way around. They're going to say he's injured. That's all they're going to do. He's injured. He can't play this week. That's all. I mean, that's what they're going to do instead of saying.
Well, they do that for the baseball All-Star game. And what I would do is say, okay, if a player can't make the All-Star game, I wouldn't allow him to participate in a regular season game for at least the next week when the team resumes play. If they're claiming injury, he can't play.
I just realized I was the standout here, where I wasn't wearing glasses, so I figured I'd put my glasses on.
I didn't know you wore glasses.
I don't, but only when I can't see.
Okay.
Hey, listen, guys. Listen. I know that we're at the top of the hour, but I get my first day on the radio today. I am going to be on Sports Talk Radio 97.5 in 2 hours. I wanted to come on here and share that with you guys so you can stream it live if you'd like. My first radio stint.
That's awesome, Pags. Congratulations.
Is it before we go, is it a paid gig? That's all I want to know.
I think I'm making like $12 an hour. I'm making like $12 an hour. This is just radio. Radio guys don't make a lot of money.
$12 an hour in radio is good.
It ain't about the money. It's not about the money. It's about
I know.
It's about finally they recognize greatness.
That's we're about to go off, but a good debate question. When an athlete signs a major contract for mega bucks and he says it wasn't about the money, a debate question should be, Was it about the money?
It's always about
It's
the
always
money.
about the money, yeah.
It is, unless you're independently wealthy like me and Pags. Then we don't care. You know?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, no, he's talking about when the player signs the big contract. Is it about the money? Of course, it's about the money. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This has been the Mac and Jack and Pags and Paul Saturday debate show. Thanks for being here. They will be here again tomorrow with the big NFL show. Have yourselves a great day.